What's up, YouTube? Back here again for another Meta Monday, where we take a look at the last week in Gods Unchained action. The top weekend ranked chart looks just like last week. Regen Nature going 23 out of 25. The identical deck also going 23 out of 25. Until Regen Nature is nerfed, it's going to keep doing that. So we no longer need to look at this. We already saw that deck last week. If you want to see Regen Nature in action, go check out last week's video. Instead, what we're going to do this week is we're going to talk about the Welcome Set tournament, which is underway. Qualifications have been going on this weekend. As of this time, there is about 65 plus people already qualified. So we'll be revealing the bracket tomorrow night. That is Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The bracket will be revealed. And when the bracket is revealed, there's going to be a very special event where you can fill in your bracket for a chance to win prizes. What prizes await those who appease the gods? Oh, I don't know what this little cat trinket's doing here, but that might be a little clue. So basically, it's a March Madness style bracket contest where you could fill in a bracket. We are going to be limited in our time to fill these brackets out and submit your entries, so make sure you see it tomorrow night, Monday night. Fill it out immediately and submit it. It will be on challenge.com. That's challenge with an O. I'll put a link in the description, but we do not have the actual bracket filled out yet as qualifications are still going. In other qualification news, we're going to release that list tomorrow, Monday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. If you're not on that list and you should be on that list, make sure you let us know. There have been a few incidents with people and their codes not working correctly. Something happening on the server side where the change with the code didn't quite take. So make sure you let us know. You have 12 hours once we released the list tomorrow morning. But you can check tonight. If you're in the Inner Sanctum Discord, then you are good. But again, double check your name on that list, because if you're not on that list and you don't tell us, the brackets are going to be made and you're not going to be there. So we wouldn't want that to happen. Anyhow, more prizes. You don't even need to be in the tournament to fill out a bracket. You can just make predictions. If you missed the qualification or didn't want to play in the tournament, didn't have time, you could still fill out a bracket, win prizes. So we had some requests this week to do a little review of the Welcome Set. How do you make a good Welcome Set deck? Good question. How do you? Well, for one, there are starter decks. Those starter decks are all bad. If you play any of these decks as they are, you're going to lose. Unless your opponent also happens to be playing these decks the way they are, in which case you'll both lose. So, how do you create your own deck? You can go to create a deck. You can pick whichever god you want. And you can click group by set. And then click filter by welcome set. And now you're only going to see welcome set cards. And any of these cards are fair game. Anything that's not in these cards will get you disqualified. So how do you know what is a good card? What's a bad card? Well, we're going to look at just some cards to avoid and some cards that need to be added to every deck, in my opinion. Of course, I could be wrong. It'll be very interesting to see what decks people make this week. But I'm just going to give you my top 5 cards here that should be included in every deck. So I'm going to try and avoid god-specific cards because they can't be in every deck. So I'm going to look at neutral cards. For one, the Wild Hog is a 2/3 for 1 mana. That's a lot of stats. It's the most stats you're going to get for 1 mana. You can see here's another 2/3. It costs 2. Another 2/3. It costs 2. So for double the mana, you get the same stats. Wild Hog, auto-include. Vanguard Axewoman is an auto-include in current meta decks. Every meta deck has Vanguard Axewoman in it. ×2. So this card right here, you know it's a good card. It's a 2/3 for 2 mana, but it also has Blitz, which if you think about Onslaught costing 1 just to add Blitz, you could easily say, well, this is just a Wild Hog plus Blitz, except it's not even confused. This is a good card. This should be in every welcome set deck. Hunt Warden, again, is another great stat card. It's got 3/4 for 3 mana. Again, this is an auto-include, in my opinion, in almost every single welcome set deck that I could think of off the top of my head. Underbridge Assailant is an interesting card here. It has very little health, but it's got 5 attack, so it's going to help you take out things like an Escaped Silverback or a Riled Ursine. This could be a nice trade, trading your 4 mana creature for a 5 mana creature. It also takes out a Rotting Mount. It takes out the Frontliner, which is a 6/5. So it's a good card to have. This one I could see not including in every single deck, but I think it's going to be in the vast majority. And the Riled Ursine is another seemingly auto-include. It's just got good stats. It's 5 mana. And you get a 6/5. Confused, it's a little annoying, but for the stats, it's much better than a 5 cost 1/5, that's for sure. And so that's my top: Wild Hog, Vanguard Axewoman, Hunt Warden, Underbridge Assailant, Riled Ursine. Those 5 are probably going to be in almost every good deck. If you're looking for something really expensive, the Juggernaut is definitely a great card. It comes with Blitz and Confuse. It's a 6/7. Things that do something immediately when you play them, like Blitz, you can immediately impact the board with this thing. So if you're looking for an expensive top-end card, Charging Oryx is probably even better if you're playing Nature, but not every deck can have Nature cards, only if you're playing Nature. So those are my top 5 cards to add. Let's talk about top 5 cards to avoid. So, Barricade, not good. It can attack. It's a 1/4, but you're basically just passing your turn, slowing your opponent down slightly, but they just get to keep putting out more and more creatures while you put out useless things that can attack. But the Barbed Portcullis is actually a 2/4, so at least when your opponent is attacking, you're doing more damage to it. I would take the Barbed Portcullis over the Barricade any day. And because the welcome set does not have a lot of cards that are instant clear cards, Magic does have a few, but there's no board wipes, which is really, really nice change of pace. I think you're going to see Barbed Portcullis in a lot of decks, and I think only people who make bad decks are going to include Barricade. Again, just my opinion. Show me a good deck with a Barricade, and I'll change my mind. I could see people in intense training trying to use Barricade, trying to buff this thing up, make it a cheaper version of a Barbed Portcullis. That could work. But ultimately, things that can attack, probably not worth your time. In my opinion, the Wild Root Staff is not a good card. It's a nature card, but since we're looking at nature, this card costs 5 mana, and it's going to give you +1/+1 to each of your creatures after you attack. It's tough to keep creatures on the board and get a wide board against a welcome set deck, because your opponent is also just playing their creatures, you're playing your creatures. It's all about making efficient trades, and pretty much every single turn you're clearing the board or you're going to get yourself killed. I don't think you'll ever see really wide boards. Nature has the best chance to do that with things like Best Friends, so it's possible. But there are not many good weapons in relics in the welcome set, and this, in my opinion, is probably the worst. If it gets going, if you have 6 creatures on the board and you attack, well then yeah, you've done good. But otherwise, that's a really expensive turn to just be hoping you have a full board. And I think things that are 8 mana, you're not going to see them very frequently. I would immediately eliminate anything that's 8 cost from almost every deck. These welcome set games, in my testing, have not really gotten to 8 mana. I think mirrors, when you're playing war against other war decks, intense training versus intense training, maybe you can get to 8 mana. But I don't see that happening very frequently in other decks. I think 7 is your top. All right, so let's talk god powers. In light, we have heal. I think that will be an extremely strong one. Heaven's Light could also be used very effectively. Chosen Visions, I don't think is going to be useful at all. There's no synergy here. And Summon Acolyte could be interesting, but it costs 3. It's really expensive. There are other ways and other gods to summon creatures that are cheaper. So we'll talk about those in a minute. So for heal, anytime you're making effective trades and then able to heal your creature back up, that could be enormous. Heaven's Light, you just lower the attack of your opponent's strength of their creatures, and you make more efficient trades that way, keeping your creatures alive. Their creatures are dying. So both of these are 1 cost. I could see these two shining very brightly. In Death, we've got Blood Ritual. You're able to boost the attack of your own creature and heal. That could be enormous. Soulburn, there's not enough synergy, I don't think, to be dealing damage to both your god and your opponent's god. It could definitely work. It's not the worst thing you could do. Undying Wish, you're creating more and more creatures, which again is a great way to be just flooding the board with creatures. You're creating a 2/1 for 2 mana instead of with Light you're creating a 2/2 for 3 mana. I would take Undying Wish all day before I took the Summon Acolyte, and I think Reanimate, unless some crazy person finds some crazy way to make this work. I don't think anyone's going to be playing Reanimate. In War, we've got Onslaught, which works decently well. However, there's only one set of deadly creatures, which is the Poison Peddler. So you're not going to see the typical Onslaught Cursed Kaipora. Enrage could be interesting if people can get it to work. I think I'd prefer Intense Training. They're both buffing your creatures. This one's setting your creatures on fire. It's probably not enough synergy to end games quickly, but I'm sure people will try Enrage. Slayer could be interesting, since there's not many relics. There's a 3/1 relic in War, and if you keep buffing that and keeping it equipped, you could keep your 3/1 relic equipped for the entire game. That could work. We'll see if people make that work. There's no weapon removal whatsoever in the welcome set. So unless people are pulling it from the Sanctum, which there are at least 2 cards in the Sanctum that can remove, maybe even 3 or 4 I can think of off the top of my head. You got the Svart Basilisk, you've got the Nefarious Briar, you've got the 2/4 that removes durability. It's a 4 cost, I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, there are some weapon removal in the Sanctum, but there is none in the welcome set. So that could be an interesting option. In Nature, Animal Bond, again, is another cheaper way than Summon Acolyte to be summoning creatures. I think this will be a very good god power to use. Flourish has never been good, never will be good. It's bad, let's just move on. Forage, we need to talk about. Leech Life, I think, will also be very good. You can take out your opponent's creatures while healing your own god. It's a little expensive, but I think it's going to be played very frequently and probably work pretty well. It remains to be seen which one's better between Animal Bond and Leech Life. And Forage is just garbage. Forage, you have to forage almost every turn or every other turn if you want to stay on top of the 4 cards. That's not going to happen. It's not playable. Don't try. You're going to think it's playable. Make me eat my words. But I don't think it's playable. So, you've been warned. Prove me wrong. I think that you will not stay on top of this. As soon as it gets past 4, it's almost impossible to keep it under 4. You lose a couple more cards each turn. late game, maybe you've got 12 cards in the void. You used to be able to quickly smash this button 2 turns in a row and you're fine. You're back down to 0. Now 2 turns in a row is only going to get you back to 4 if you don't lose anything 2 turns in a row. You can't just be wasting all your mana every turn foraging and praying to get a really good card. Sometimes you're going to get Dense Fog. I think this is going to be the biggest pitfall that every new player falls into, is thinking that Forage is good because it used to be great, but now it's bad. Don't do it. You've been warned. For Magic, Blast Wave could be enormous. Boards can't get super wide, so you're pretty much able to keep attacking all of your opponent's creatures every single turn. This could be huge. I think we'll see this a lot, and it will be very successful. Clear Mind, there's not much that you need to foresee. You're not looking for synergies or spells necessarily. There are a few spells, and protecting your god is always helpful. But at the cost of playing creatures or clearing creatures, it remains to be seen. This one I'm on the fence about. Discovery, I don't think there's enough spells in Magic for this to be worthwhile. And Mage Bolt could be interesting, dealing 2 damage to a creature, but it costs 3. Blast Wave does 2 damage overall, and it costs 2. This does 2 damage, and it costs 3. Of course, you can target a specific creature with this. I think people will play Mage Bolt as well. It might be a little too expensive, but we'll see. And lastly, we've got Deception. Cheat is phenomenal. Cheat wins games. You can hide your own creatures so your opponent can't kill them, and then just finish them off. Memory Charm is obnoxious if you have lots of sleep synergy, which there is none here. I don't know that this one will be super helpful. Flip could be interesting. Flip is a wild card. You get to add a random card from your opponent's god to your hand. It's similar to Forage, except that there's no 4-card void restriction, so you can constantly be flipping whenever you have 3 free mana. Are you going to have 3 free mana? Who knows? Thievery, you're really banking on your opponent playing a good god power. Instead, you could just play your own good god power like Cheat. So there you have it. That's all the god powers. My quick synopses of which ones might be good, which ones are definitely ones to avoid, which cards you should definitely add to every deck, which cards you should avoid from every deck. Hopefully that's helpful. Again, the order of events coming up, we have tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Make sure you're on that list, and that if you qualified, you are on the list of qualified participants. If you're not, you need to let us know immediately. We will be releasing the actual bracket 7 p.m. on my stream tomorrow night. So that's Eastern time, 7 p.m. Make sure that you are on the list before that time. Otherwise, you are out of the tournament. Then you'll have about 1 day if you want to fill in a bracket, win prizes. And after that, we will have the first featured matchup will be on Friday on my stream. TriggerHave will be hosting welcome set warm-ups practices all week on his stream. So make sure you check that out. So keep your eyes peeled to this channel here, to my Twitch channel, and to TriggerHaven's Twitch channel. And TriggerHaven's Discord will also have lots of information coming up about this event. Thank you to everyone who entered and qualified. It's going to be an amazing event. Next week, we'll be back, hopefully, to some semblance of regular Meta Monday. So thank you so much for checking it out, and I will see you guys again next week. Peace. With